So that is us. That is us live, I think. That sounds of it, Katie Hunter. Sorry to cut you off there, but yeah, for everyone who's watching, thank you for watching. First of all, please do like and subscribe to all the MMA UK channels. We really appreciate your support. And yeah, tonight we're here. We're going to be going over UFC 249, which went down on the weekend. I think it was probably a card that will probably be remembered as one of the most eventful cards with coming out of coronavirus lockdown. So we're going to talk about that. And yeah, there's a lot to get through, so I'm going to go straight into it. First of all, let me show you to my guests. First of all, Glenn the Sledge Williams. Glenn, how are you, buddy?
I'm very good, Lou. How are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, Glenn. I got to say, Glenn, this is the best signal I've ever seen for you on one of these shows.
Oh, there's no word of a lie. I've left my Wi-Fi off and I've stuck to my mobile network for a change.
Fair play. Well, you're going to get rinsed on that, but as long as we got a good show.
Now, can I start off with a quick shout out to my long-time friend and coach, Richard Franco Williams, whose wife gave birth to a baby girl yesterday.
Brilliant.
So,
Congratulations.
Congratulations to Richard.
Yeah, fair play, Rich. Well done, buddy. So yeah, Glenn, thanks for coming on. Thank you for paying the wife, paying for your data. And always good to see you, buddy. Chris Emmanuel, how are you, buddy? Nice to see you this evening. You're looking very well.
I'm good, thanks, mate. You?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. As always, Chris, always better for seeing you, buddy.
Smooth as silk, you are, mate. Smooth.
And last but not least, the legend, Katie Hunter. Katie, what's going on? How's lockdown treating you, Katie?
I'm all right, actually. I'm doing fine. I think I've got it easier than a lot of people. I'm not having to homeschool or anything because I've got no kids. So, yeah, I'm trying not to complain too much. How are you?
I'm doing good. I was going to say, you've tanned a little bit there, Katie. You're looking quite brown.
This is not only my normal Essex fake tan, which is obviously in place, but I've also got a new ring light as well. So, yeah, I can adjust the...
There we are.
to be whatever shade you want me to be.
There we are. Tip of the day from Katie Hunter. Good light then. So, guys, massive card on the weekend, UFC 249. Obviously, for people who don't know, the main event of that was for the interim lightweight belt. Tony Ferguson, El Kakui against Justin Highlight Gaethje. An incredible fight. Obviously, Justin Gaethje coming in with a massive upset. Stopped Tony Ferguson in the 5th round with a TKO. Arguably the best performance of his career. I would say it probably is the best performance of his career for him to stop a guy like Tony, 12-fight win streak. Glenn, I'm going to come to you first on this one, buddy. I know you're walking around, but you're going to have to do it on the move. What did you make of this fight?
I'm going to move to like this. I'm listening to Katie, I think. I'm going to move into my kitchen. So, how's that?
You're looking good, buddy. You're looking good.
Perfect.
So what did you make of the fight, Glenn? Obviously, Justin Gaethje getting that TKO of Tony Ferguson, and we got a new interim champion now.
Oh, it's I like what he did after. I'm not happy with the interim one. I'll put the real one on because I think he's going to get it. As far as best performance of his career, without a shadow of a doubt, I'd go as far as say he's my favourite lightweight fight. I loved Nate Diaz and McGregor, but that fight was up there.
Yeah,
it was up there.
Talk us through the technical side of it a little bit, Glenn, because I know you've got a little bit more of an insight to us than the rest of us. But the left hand Gaethje was landing. What was there anything you saw with that impressed you?
I found he landed bigger punches more when he was on a back foot, coming out the pocket slightly, which is usually don't happen. Now, I'm not a technical striker by any means, but the angles they was creating to come in was brilliant, to be honest. It was really, it was brilliant. You could see how much damage he did. And like I told you last time, I like listening to the cornerman and telling him to pull away from his punches a bit, just to land cleaner ones. The difference that made in the 3rd and 4th, when he stopped putting so much power into it and perhaps was saving a little bit of energy. But by doing that, picking his punches, he was hitting cleaner punches, and that's when the damage started to come.
Yeah, he definitely. I remember they said on the commentary that he just couldn't miss with those hands. He was doing very, very well. And Katie, I want to come to you. He got a stoppage in the 5th round there. Tony obviously was disappointed. There was a little bit of a shove at the end from Tony. Gaethje even said at the end that he would have been pissed off if he was Tony to be stopped like that. What did you think of the stoppage? Do you think it was a good stoppage? Do you think it should have carried on? What was your take on the ending?
I thought it was a good stoppage. It was actually hurting me to see him taking so much damage, and he is such a warrior. We said last night that, referees are in there to protect fighters from themselves in those instances. You never know. He might be prepared to die in there, but that would not be a good look for the sport. We don't want to see that. So there was no way he was turning it round at that stage. I think the ref had given him every opportunity, but yeah, he needed to be saved from himself at the end. And credit to Justin Gaethje, that 5th round was his best round, I think. He just was merciless.
Yeah, and on short notice as well, Katie, wasn't it? I know he was supposed to have the fight only a couple of weeks ago, but it got that extension. Does that make the performance a little bit more impressive that he took it instead of Khabib going in there?
I actually think I would rather have been Justin Gaethje, a fit guy coming off like 3 weeks' notice, than I would have as overtrained as Tony Ferguson. He said that he's been in camp since November last year. His camps are insane. Like all the stories that come out of them are true. Like, I know people who've trained with them. He's not making this shit up. He really does train for 6 hours straight with no breaks and stuff. So I think the fact that he made weight for the Khabib fight that he knew wasn't happening and then had to make weight again, I just think all round Justin Gaethje probably, only coming off that notice period actually was in his favour.
Yeah. I think maybe you're right. Actually, a lot of people said that they felt Tony wasn't quite himself, and I personally did think Tony looked good. I just thought Justin was a step ahead. That was my take on the whole thing. So I don't know. It's one of those, but I guess now we gotta wait and see what happens with both fighters. Unfortunately, what this does mean is that we're probably still not going to be getting a fight between Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov. It definitely seems to be a cursed fight, but Justin stepping in there now, Chris. Did you think Khabib will have seen anything to worry him from Justin Gaethje in that fight?
I think Khabib's smart enough to know that everyone in that top echelon of the division is good enough to cause him problems. Everyone throws up a different set of issues for him. And if you look at the way that Gaethje's just developed since he's moved into the UFC, he's just become a far more complete fighter. Everyone always talks about his wrestling, his takedown defense with his wrestling, because he prefers to stay on his feet, and his knockout power is always evident. But that self-control, and what Glenn talked about, what Trevor Whitman said to him in his corner after the 2nd round, where he told him to dial that back, and then what he said to him in the 4th round as well, at the end of the 4th round, to control himself and not get overexcited, because he knows what will happen if he gets overexcited, which Gaethje himself referenced at the end of the fight with this interview with Joe Rogan. He's a smart guy. He's intelligent. He's an incredibly talented fighter, and if Khabib leaves himself open for shots all the time, he gets caught. And if he gets caught by a proper shot from Gaethje, that could be lights out, and it could be 28-1. So, just
shout out to Yanis Fleming there, Mr. Sport, who said he's missed Chris's lisp. So,
Mr. Herbalife himself.
Yeah, there we are.
Getting absolutely roasted here tonight.
There we go. This is why we shouldn't have the comments switched on. Look, this is why.
Peter needs some tips on singing. So anyway, going back to Gaethje, I think that Khabib is smart enough to know that Gaethje is a real deal, and he's a serious contender to take away that O. So it's a really interesting prospect now. I wasn't excited for the thought of Khabib versus Gaethje before this fight, but now I really am. The way he dismantled Tony is just phenomenal.
Was that they were the best performances in lightweight history for you, Chris?
Yeah, definitely. I didn't have Gaethje. I had Gaethje losing that all ends up. I didn't think for 1 second he'd beat Tony Ferguson. I thought that Tony would be able to absorb his power, which he did, and I thought that Tony was just a more complete fighter. But he didn't win a round. Gaethje won every single round in that fight comprehensively, I think, and it was absolutely astounding. Yeah,
I think maybe for argument's sake, if you wanted to play devil's advocate, you could maybe say Tony might have snuck the second round with a knockdown, but other than that, it was all Gaethje, wasn't it?
No, I think Gaethje had enough of the round for that not to have played enough of a part in the judge's decision. But then we did see some crazy judging at certain points of the card as well. So you never know, really.
Yeah, and there's another question that's just come in from Andy Sledge. So I want to give this one to Glenn. He's asked, what was the opinion on advice from the corners? Justin was having some awesome advice from Whitman, and Tony was having shite advice from Eddie Bravo. I was actually going to ask this question anyway because you mentioned that the advice from Whitman, it was a really, really concise advice. So good question, Andy. What Eddie and the other guys seem to be saying was, it's looking beautiful. It's looking beautiful. You did great. But he was losing every round. What was your take on that?
Apart from the advice I heard in between rounds, I didn't hear him. I was only hearing Tony's corner. And I was trying to listen for the advice to see how they try and... Because they all saying, if it ain't broke, don't change it. But his game plan needed changing. I would have liked him to shoot more. All right, Gaethje's wrestling defence is brilliant, but do fucking something. And I couldn't hear it. There was no calls for him to press or to sit off or to change what he was doing. He was trying to keep on being Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, I would agree. And I don't know, what's your take on that, Katie? Because I did feel that there wasn't too much coming. I know Eddie Bravo did advise that he would do an Imanari role at one point, but
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. What was your take on the cornering?
I know that Tony does like to run his own camps, and you don't know how much he's behind, just having his own game plan and doing his own thing. I actually thought Eddie Bravo would have been better off not speaking in between those rounds because the things he was saying I don't know, they just didn't seem like advice that you should be giving in a championship fight. It seemed like something that somebody who'd had a few jiu-jitsu lessons might say. I don't know, and I think the fact that Whitman was giving such good advice just really highlighted it, and the fact that you could hear everything. He wasn't getting. I don't know whether he would have changed his game plan anyway, but he certainly wasn't getting any ideas from his corner on what to do to change things up.
Yeah, I think that's really evident as well.
Role.
Yeah, no, I think it's evident as well because Trevor Whitman he's got such a close relationship with Justin. That really comes across, I think, when you see the way they interact with each other. I don't know, Chris, what's your thoughts on Whitman? I think he's got to be one of the best out there at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, you can see that from the way that he was instructing Justin throughout the fight. Like I said earlier, the advice that he gave him at the end of round 4 was instrumental in ensuring that Gaethje finished the job and actually did what was expected of him. I had this conversation. By the way, I want to give a shout out to Andy Sledge. He's one of the old school guys from UK MMA. So hello, Sledge. So I'm having this conversation with one of the fighters I manage today, Aaron Allay. And he was saying that if Tony had a strike, bearing in mind that at no point did Tony actually try and take it to the ground where potentially Eddie Bravo could have given him some type of advice. But if he had a decent striking coach in his corner or somebody who was a decent striking coach who was forthright enough with this opinion, because I didn't even know who else he had in his corner, to be honest, then potentially he could have been given some decent advice, like stop trying to punch him in his thigh because every time you punch him in his thigh, you're getting countered with a hook to your face. No one said that to him at any point in the fight. Yet all the way through, even in the 5th round, he is still doing this, crazy idea. I don't know where he got that game plan from, but there was no
Stephen A. Smith.
there's no evolution to the game plan at all. Whereas you can see that Whitman's the type of guy who's capable of changing mid-fight and adjusting and giving this fighter the correct instruction to actually make sure that he reacts to what the other fighter is doing. None of that whatsoever came from Tony's corner. That Imanari roll instruction was just lunacy. And when I think it was the 5th, wasn't it, when Tony tried it, he was so far out.
Last round.
It's difficult enough to do it at the best of times. That line where you're taking 20 minutes worth of punches to the head from Justin Gaethje. So trying to get him to do that at that point in the fight it was lunacy to me. I didn't understand why he was getting that instruction.
Yeah,
Lou, can I answer the question you asked Chris about what do you think Khabib is thinking?
Yeah, go on.
I think he'd rather fight Gaethje than Ferguson because I don't think I think the style matches Khabib. the style for Khabib to beat Gaethje is more suitable than Tony, because Tony's amazing at cutting people from the bottom. He's still going to put Gaethje in his back now. We wouldn't have been able to fight like that against Tony Ferguson. Because the only danger Tony would have had would be to him is on his back, trying to shoot up something or trying to cut him or elbows. I think he could put okay, it's going to be a lot harder to get Tony Justin Gaethje on his back. But I think once he gets there, he's going to be much more dominant than what he would be with Tony Ferguson.
It's one of those, isn't it? Because everyone you think about, you think of the wrestler, the caliber of wrestlers Khabib has fought, and he's just molded every single one of them. So even when you say like a national wrestling champion like Justin Gaethje, it still doesn't give you much confidence that he's going to be able to stop Khabib's takedown. So when you think like of a fight that is definitely going to go to the floor, like you said, Glenn, I think it does definitely give a guy like Tony on his back more chance in some ways.
I would like the rules to change before Gaethje and Khabib fight, though, because I'm sticking by my guns. My argument is, if I've tried taking you down 4 times and you stopped me 3 and I've only taken you down once, I think you have won the wrestling. So if, Gaethje only uses his wrestling to defend takedowns, I think if he's only taken them down once out of 4 attempts, then the defender is winning, and that's not how they score it. They score the offensive wrestler.
At the same time, though, Sledge, if you block a kick or punch, you don't get a point for blocking the kick or the punch, you.
I know that, but it's different though, isn't it? They're not scoring effective kicks or effective punches. It's effective striking as an overall. Wrestling for me is defensive as well as offensive. Striking isn't.
If that was the case, then Michelle Waterson would have run through Carla Esparza on the judges' scorecard. Because Waterson stopped how many of Carla Esparza's takedowns?
I missed that fight.
I did, yeah. Well, she stuffed virtually everything that Carla threw at her, takedown-wise, and she still lost on the judges' scorecard.
I think this is one...
I think it should be like for like. Perhaps not like for like, but it should be a more of a scoring towards... Because as far as I'm concerned, I'm deciding whether the wrestlers go in if I'm defending, or whether the fighters go in. If I decide where the fight goes, I should be scored for dominating it.
It's an interesting point, Sledge. I think for me, I want to take this up further with like a really top coach like Richard Shaw or Brad Pickett, someone who's like really into sort of the rule side of things. That's why I think the next step, we get one of these go in, we get one of these guys on, and we see what they think, I reckon.
To be fair, all of Shaw MMA, Jack and Carl Parker, I'd love to hear all their opinions on that.
I think that'd be a good one for next one. But anyway, back on to UFC 249 because we got a lot to get through. So we're going to get on to the co-main event now, which was contested between Henry Cejudo and Dominic Cruz. Another absolutely massive fight. You've got the guy who started that division, Dominic Cruz, coming up against Triple C, Olympic champion, flyweight champion and bantamweight champion, Henry Cejudo. A brilliant fight, obviously. Cejudo getting the win with a second-round TKO. Katie, I want to come to you first on this one. But talk us through the fight a little bit. What happened and what did you see in that stoppage from Cejudo?
I think Cejudo was winning the fight anyway. Like that, I really loved the leg kicks that he was just literally trying to take, as the commentator said, well, the only thing they got right, like that he was going for both legs every time he hacked at him, and he really was going for Dominic. I think the fact that Dominic, I might be being a bit harsh, but I don't really feel he's evolved that much, and that style that was so awkward and crazy 10 years ago, maybe some people are finding a way to deal with it. The stoppage, I feel like you can argue it either way. And if you're Henry, you're going to think it was a great stoppage. And if you're Cruz, you're going to be unhappy with it. Somebody messaged me about the accusation that Cruz made after the show, and I hadn't even heard it, but he said that Peterson stunk of booze and cigarettes, and I don't even know why cigarettes is a problem actually, but kind of suggesting that his judgment was impaired, which is a pretty harsh accusation. I don't know if that's a real account. Does anyone know if that's real?
I've heard it.
Yeah, it's real. It's got to check a look.
I think it'd be verified if that was a real account. It doesn't look verified to me. But no, to be honest, Katie, I know what you mean. I don't think it helps anyone making accusations like that. As in, For me, what I would say, I did think Dominic was getting back to his feet, but also, and I said this when
he wasn't defending himself.
Yeah, he was trying to get back to his feet. But what I said, and it's the same thing with the TJ Dillashaw fight. I feel like Henry Cejudo is such a good winner. He sells it to the ref very well. You know, that just kind of his body language, the way he flurries. I feel like he has a very good way of selling these finishes. And I mean, in its own right, 11 unanswered punches. You know, if you're dropped and then you're eating that many shots, it's fair enough. You're in that position to get stopped.
That's not his real account.
That's not his real account, no. But, you know, I think even just the accusation, it's not really helping anyone. So, I don't know. It's one of those, I guess, only Dominic will know why he said it. But there we are.
I'd let him off for the fact that he's just taken a lot of damage to the head. And I feel like you can excuse a lot of behaviour straight after that. But he should come out and apologise if he doesn't stand by it. So, it'd be interesting to see. Otherwise, it's going to be awkward those two working the same shows in the future, isn't it?
It is. But, yeah, I don't know what to say, really. It's not very good. But I know, Glenn, do you think 3 years out did him any good in a fight against one of the best champions out there at the minute?
It didn't look like, but the only thing I was going to say, Katie already said it, in 3 years, you can't evolve for the times, and he haven't. Same as I think when somebody finds the answer to Khabib's pray and lay, I think everyone's going to copy it. And if they find that answer in 3 years and he came back, he's not going to know how to combat them. So that's what the antidote to me was. As far as the stoppage goes as well, I think that the ref, perhaps a couple of seconds earlier, if he stepped in before he tried getting up, he wouldn't have had to say. But when he started making that motion forward, he hadn't tried getting up and he was already committed into stopping it. So then he got in the way and tried stopping him. So that's why I think he looked a bit, I don't know, wrong then, because his hand was on the floor and he was backwards against the cage trying to get up. He'd already made that commitment towards him. I think he tried to stop it then.
Yeah. So did you have any problems with the stoppage, Glenn, or do you think it was a good stoppage?
Bad positioning by the ref is the only thing. I mean, if he'd stopped it before his hand was on a cage and before he started getting up, which that's when he made the initial movement towards him, I feel, then nobody would have cared. But because he had gone through the process of trying to get, don't forget, them 11 punches was when his face was on the floor, mate.
Yeah.
And then afterwards he tried getting up. So perhaps he should have stopped there a few punches earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right, actually. Maybe that's one of those. Like for me, I personally, I thought it was a good stoppage, but like I said, I always kind of tend to lean on the side of going with the ref because I think it's safer for the fighters. But I suppose everyone has their own opinion, don't they? So, but I mean, for me, Cejudo looked brilliant in this fight anyway. I thought he'd won the 2 rounds at that point. I thought the difference in sort of catching Dominic out this time was that I thought in coming up a weight class, I thought Cejudo was much faster than anyone Dominic had fought before. I thought that was the real telling issue for me, that Cruz couldn't outrun him.
And I loved how Cejudo was adjusting as well. He says he adjusts in fights, and he does. He was timing him coming in. I wouldn't like a leg kick off him. His thighs are massive. You know, he was coming in, timing, catching it, and before he come back out, he had been hit with the absolute sledgehammer of a leg. Like so, fair play, kudos to him.
Yeah, he's a great champion, and that brings me on to you, Chris, because to have such a great champion like Cejudo putting on 3 or 4 big performances in a row now. At the end of that fight, he says thank you to everyone, and that's the end of my career. Do you think that was a good time for him to retire? And do you think he's going to come back to the sport of MMA?
That's 50-50, isn't it? Because yes, it's a good time for him to retire because he spent so long competing at a high level in both wrestling and MMA. He spent all of his formative years, teenage years, through his 20s. He's 33 years old now. That's a hell of a lot of time that he's been competing and not actually lived a life. And the cheesy little so-and-so has fallen in love now and finally got himself a girlfriend. And he's looking at potentially settling down and having a family. Now, you can't do that. You can't commit 100% to MMA and 100% to having a family. And if he's that type of person who wants to be, a 21st century dad, then that's a decision worth making. But then the cynic in me looks at it and thinks, well, what a great ploy for him to essentially put himself back in the picture with the UFC and on the bargaining table. And the next time they bring up a champion anywhere between 125 and 145 who is dominant, who makes a lot of noise. They've got somebody who's an Olympic gold medalist, 125 champion, 135 champion, taken out a who's who list of fighters, and then walks away at the very top. They'll bring him straight back in like Georges St. Pierre and make an absolute shed ton of money together. So, sensible decision. He reminds me, I think I've said it before on this podcast. He looks like White Goodman from Dodgeball. Every time I see him, the way that he moves, the way he acts, it just reminds me of that character from Dodgeball. It just irritates the crap out of me. But I've so much respect for the way that he fights, the way that he's evolved, and also his business acumen and putting himself in this position where he will actually have a choice and he's not going to be dictated to by the company. He can come back in on his own terms, which is a rarity in the UFC.
Yeah. I think, like you said, it's rare, to see. Usually we see guys kind of fall off the top, but I mean, Cejudo has just looked better and better every fight up until this point, doesn't he?
You look at the difference between, the Cejudo came in at 125 and struggled to make weight and was very one-dimensional, to the guy who dismantled Dominic Cruz, who was always classed as being one of the most difficult fighters to fight against technically. Like you guys have said,
TJ.
My turn to talk now, Katie. Like you guys have said beforehand, Dominic Cruz was he had a unique style which was difficult to replicate and difficult to fight against. For me, TJ Dillashaw was Dominic Cruz 2.0. The way that he moved, he was Dominic Cruz, but with power as well. But Cejudo dealt with him as well. So it's a sensible decision by Cejudo. He's essentially left with a relatively unblemished record, and now has the opportunity to decide what he wants to do with his life.
Yeah, no, fair play. And we've got D Brown has left a comment saying it's not a good time for Triple Champ to retire. There's some big money bouts for him to have. Yeah, I mean, Katie, there is some good money going missing for him now, isn't there? That's the only thing when he's in such form.
Yeah, I think Chris is right though. He's better off if he wants the time off. You can't really get it when you're champ. You're supposed to stay active. He's champ of 2 weight classes, although he's owned up to the fact that he doesn't want to go back down to 125. So this way he gets to walk away with the belts, probably have a year or 2 off to start his family if he wants to, comes back and has a super fight, his first fight back. He is going to have the best of both worlds, probably on a much better deal than he's on at the moment. Because he's probably not making big money out of these fights, I wouldn't have thought. So, yeah, we may as well come back in a couple of years for a super fight.
That's the problem for lighter weights, though, isn't it? The lighter weights never get the respect that they deserve, and that's why you saw Mighty Mouse disappear off to one, because he just wasn't getting the money for it. And the fact that you've got someone who is so highly decorated and is so dominant across 2 weight classes, fighting as a co-main to an interim title. Okay, it's a heavier weight, but it's still only an interim title. Shows that it doesn't actually that weight class doesn't have the draw that the bigger guys do. So in terms of pay-per-view points, I wonder what he'd be getting there as well. I doubt if he'd have been getting anywhere near the same amount as Ferguson and potentially Gaethje for being the top draw.
Yeah, it's definitely food for thought. But either way, I think I'm happy for him to retire on top. Like you said, it doesn't happen very often, so I'll be happy to see him come back. But also at this point, happy to see someone go out on top. So yeah, congratulations to Henry Cejudo, amazing fight, and we look forward to seeing what the future holds for him. So that takes us on to the next fight now.
Who fights for the vacant bantamweight belt then, Lewis?
Oh, it's a tough one, isn't it? When's TJ's suspension?
Best fight of the year before he comes back.
So he's out of the picture for a while. And I think Marias probably after his win over Aldo, he's got to come back in for a shot, doesn't he?
Pettis.
Yeah, I think probably Marias.
I think it should be Jan versus Sterling.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, kid.
That's my one. If we're talking about who people should fight next, if we can just quickly roll back a little bit, who do you think that Tony Ferguson should fight next? Because that guy's not going to retire. Looking at him dancing around his hospital room today.
Nate Diaz, I want to see him fight.
I put a poll on Instagram, and a few people have said Diaz.
That's the fight to make, I think.
What do you reckon, Katie?
God. Oh, I don't. I mean, he's not going to get a fight with Conor because it's too dangerous of a fight for Conor. But I'd like him to get a money fight before he retires. I don't think he's got too many more left in him.
As a fan, can I chuck a name at you?
Yeah.
Dan the Hangman Hooker.
Very good fight. It's a very good
Do you
fight.
imagine watching those two just literally smash the living shit out of each other around the
I
cage?
don't want to see him get hurt like that again.
I don't think Tony will step back in that sense now, though. I think he's only going to go for like a big name, like a Khabib.
Hooker's ranked 5 or 6 in the world.
I know, but he's not had that consistency that Ferguson has had, is he? He's only just become a big name.
You've got Khabib, you've got Tony Ferguson, you've got Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, and then you've got Dan Hooker. Now, none of the others are going to fight.
The other ones are going to fight him.
No, that's my point.
I think it'd be a great fight. I just think I could see Tony fighting Dustin Poirier, or I could see him sitting out and taking the winner of. I could see him taking Khabib anyway if he beats Justin Gaethje.
I can't see Dustin Poirier taking the Tony Ferguson fight. Far too dangerous for Poirier.
I don't want Ferguson to sit back and become a gatekeeper, because you have a danger then of losing and just dropping down and finish his legacy in a bad way. Finish on top like Cejudo, well, not quite like Cejudo, but stay at the top or either knock on the head or don't start dropping down and start being a match, a stepping stone for anyone. I wouldn't like that to him at all.
Do you guys not think he could just sit out for a couple of months and still fight the winner of Khabib or Gaethje?
No, he won't get the winner.
A loss.
No way. He won't get a title fight off a loss. It'll be, full well, whoever wins that's fighting Conor McGregor next.
Yeah, I suppose it's. But I mean, if McGregor fights in between that and loses, I don't know. I think it's a possibility.
Why didn't he get a title shot? Because 2 other people this year alone have title shots off the back of losses. So why not somebody who holds a record for the longest win streak in lightweight history? Because he deserves it on the back of that alone.
It completely deserves it, but the problem you got is it's a business it's a business first, isn't it? So you got Conor McGregor in that division, Dustin Poirier, who's coming off the back of being in a very strong position. They're both well ahead of him now in the rankings.
I don't know. It's definitely one to think about. I think because even though Tony lost that, he still was trying to go until the end as well, which I think does mean a lot. He wasn't broken in that sense. So I think it could happen if something goes wrong. We might. Maybe I'm just clinging to I want to see this Tony Ferguson and Khabib fight so much. I don't know.
Maybe Justin will win and he could get Khabib if Justin beats him.
Yeah, maybe. I just got to go to a comment from Ricky Wright as well, who was going back to the Cejudo conversation. He said the next fight that's going to be for the bantamweight title is Brett or Tank, which, I mean, I'm not complaining if that happens.
So 2 Welsh people on the show. What are your views?
On what, sorry?
Coming from Welsh Ricky Wright, I was just wondering what the 2 Welsh people in the room thought about the 2 Welsh names being put forward by the Welsh man Ricky Wright.
In terms of what?
Tank or Shaw?
Ooh, for a title shot, you mean?
That's what he's saying.
Which answer first or Lewis?
Go on, you go first, Sledge.
Oh, as much as we both gonna love a title shot, I think so. Sterling who beat Brett will have a go first, and I think in a couple of years then he will come back, and I think Brett will beat him, but he won't be ready yet. That's for Tank. It's a couple of 2 years too early. But he will definitely. I think Tank will be the first Welsh champion. But not yet, and that's the honest.
Joking aside, I reckon within the next 18 months, you're going to see both of them in the top 10.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Brett's performance last time was brilliant.
Now.
I was only giving shit because it was Ricky Wright saying about it. He's the biggest Welsh nationalist I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, I would agree with Sledge. I think, like I said, it's a little bit too soon for Tank to be talking about that. But I think maybe in the next year, Jackson will be in the top 10. And Brett, after his last performance, he looked brilliant, didn't he? So
brilliant. Really enjoyed that.
They're training together as well, which I think is pushing the 2 of them on. So I mean, the sky's the limit for them 2 now. I think they both have a leading night. There's another guy I think has got a big shout. He's not in the UFC yet, but Mason Jones. He's another guy I think is going to do a lot of damage when he gets in there. the future's looking bright for Welsh MMA at the minute.
But what I'd like to make, like, Tank is going to get the standard of people he didn't have in Cage Warriors. Mason haven't come up against a genuine genuine wrestler yet. It's going to take him down, though.
Yeah.
Don't know how he's going to... It's going to take a couple of fights like that until he's ready for them regularly, I feel. Like, we know how good his striking is. We know how good everything is about him. But can he put up with a fighter like that? We don't know yet. But until he starts doing that at like a lower level and just getting used to how to cope with it, I think then he'll be a top 10 fighter.
Yeah.
It'll be later rather than sooner, but that will come once he's in there.
Yeah. No, we look forward to that one. Like I said, Wales definitely got a lot of good fighters coming through, and that's good for me and you, Sledge. So yeah. But anyway, pushing us back onto this because you sidetracked me there, Chris Emmanuel.
So easy to get you Welsh to talk about the Welsh.
It is. Back to UFC 249. Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. It was a fight that didn't last very long. It lasted a couple of seconds. Francis Ngannou came out beast mode, ate a massive shot, didn't flinch, and knocked Rozenstruik clean out.
Don't think he's going to call him out in a hurry again, is he?
Yeah. Chris, I'll come to you first on this one. Talk us through the fight, buddy. All 3 or 4 seconds of it.
Okay. I'm going to be controversial for a change now. It was shit, wasn't it?
Not like you, Chris?
It was shit. So Ngannou comes out. First of all, he looks like he's standing quite tight. He looks like he's got some good shape. But then all of a sudden, as soon as he takes a little clip, he just windmills. And because he's got that absolutely phenomenal knockout power, he just relies on that. And he's just throwing the most ridiculous shots. And Rozenstruik, it's like a rabbit or deer in the headlights, absolutely panicked. There was no movement whatsoever. He just walked back in a straight line until he got to the point where he couldn't go back any further, got clipped on the chin, fell back against the fence, and that was it. It was game over. Daniel Cormier was saying on Twitter today, there's absolutely no way that he would stand with Francis Ngannou. All he'd do is he'd just duck under, he'd take him down, he'd just beat him up. And he'd fight him on the ground. It'd be pointless standing with him. So if you're fighting against someone like Ngannou, you've got to go in with a relative game plan, not just stand there and let him hit you, because that's all that happened. I don't think it was, obviously it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch someone get knocked out. But in terms of actual skill and ability, it's probably the least skillful performance on the card, I thought.
Yeah. Well, Richard Daly's commenting that it doesn't tell us much about Francis or whether he's ready to take on another wrestler. Any decent wrestler would have ducked those well punches and taken him down. I think that's pretty much it. That's something we can all agree on. No one in their right mind is going to stand there and try and take those punches. So you've got to try and wrestle them. Yeah.
Last night I did chuck up a fight that I'd love to see happen. Francis Ngannou versus Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Crazy fight, crazy fight. Glenn,
Brilliant.
do you think you'll go for a fight like that next, or do you think he should get a title shot now after the streak he's on?
I think he's going to be in line for a title shot, isn't he? Whether DC will get a rematch with Stipe before DC retires, or whether they took a straight to Ngannou. But again, I don't think he's right. You just haven't got the defensive skills to stop a wrestler taking him down. You commit that much, you go forward. Somebody changes their levels, they're going to take your leg home, and that's the end of it. Yeah.
No, I think you're probably like Katie. What's your thoughts? DC next or Ngannou for the belt shot?
Yeah, so that's what I told Mason. I think if Stipe comes back soon, because he's saying he's got this eye injury and he's firefighting and stuff, and he's needed at the moment. And DC's obviously getting on. He wanted to retire at 40, and I think his 41st birthday was in March
last month
this year. Yeah, so
he's getting on DC now, isn't he?
Yeah, and I feel that Mason was thinking maybe it would be DC versus Ngannou, but I think DC will retire unless he gets Stipe or maybe John Jones. But I think the Stipe fight is the one he's holding out for. If that doesn't happen, I can just see him retiring.
Yeah.
So
do you think he'd take it though?
It.
Katie, do you think he'd take it if the UFC say Stipe says now, look, I can't commit to a fight now for the next 3 or 4 months because of what's happening with coronavirus. I need to be in my firefighting station. And the UFC says, look, DC, last fight, yourself versus Ngannou for an interim bout. Do you think that is enough to interest him to to have that last fight with
Probably
Ngannou?
not. I don't know for an interim belt, because I think, you know, how Justin Gaethje treated that belt. That's how real fighters feel about those belts. They have those belts so they get paid as a champion. Not me, but if it was for a real belt, then maybe he does want to walk away on top. But I don't. I feel like he's so annoyed with himself for the way he fought in that Stipe fight and the way he ignored the game plan and ignored his corner and just lost it for himself. I feel like he's desperate for that opportunity to get that one back, because he knows he can get that one back and he shouldn't have lost to him.
Yeah.
In his opinion anyway. So I think for everything DC's done for the sport, DC deserves the next title shot against Stipe. If Stipe's not coming back, I reckon they could be fighting. I reckon it could be Francis against somebody else.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I think this coronavirus is definitely bringing a lot of challenges up just to get the cards on, but also in terms of how it affects the roster now. How does it affect the rankings with people who's ranked higher maybe can't make these fights? Do they carry on without it, or do they sort of wait? What's your opinions, Chris? Do you think it's challenging, isn't it? It's challenging now.
I think we're going to have more of a view in 2 weeks' time when we see the fallout of this week's events, because from what I've read, the coronavirus has a gestation period of up to 14 days. So the number of people who were exposed to Jacare and Jacare's cornerman over the 2 days before they were pulled off the card was pretty high. So if we have a situation where we do have a series of illnesses as a result of exposure at UFC 249, I think this conversation is pretty much immaterial, because they're not going to have any more events. It's a huge risk in the first place actually putting it on. Okay, it's a calculated risk to an extent, and all of us have enjoyed watching it, regardless of how we felt about it morally. But I still don't feel fully comfortable and fully confident that we're going to walk away from it. Well, the sport's going to walk away from this unscathed. I still think there's going to be some
just for people who don't know the situation with this, obviously on this card, UFC 249, Jacare de Souza was meant to be fighting against Uriah Hall. He made weight, they turned up, and then the day, I think before the fights or the day of the fights, Jacare de Souza actually tested positive for COVID-19, so he was pulled from the card. The whole fight was removed. But it was obviously after the case that he'd been around all the UFC staff, a lot of other fighters, which a lot of people were angry about. I mean, I think there has definitely been a mixed bag of responses. Glenn, what's your take on this situation, buddy?
At the moment, it is what it is, isn't it? I'm shocked that it went ahead. I thought they would have pulled the whole card as soon as that happened. But reading into what Dana said, even though there's a 10 to 14 day period of the symptoms showing, if you get tested before the symptoms, it should show you had it, and they retested most people that had been around apparently, and they hadn't tested positive, so that's why it went ahead.
Yes, it's a tricky one. I mean, I just hope that nothing comes of it now. I hope it's just a case that De Souza has it and no one else, and we carry on with these cards. But you just never know, Katie, deal with this at the moment. It seems to just be one thing after another.
Yeah, anything could happen, couldn't it? I saw Peter's comment pop up there about Dana fist bumping everyone, and he fist bumped Jacare, and then I think the next person up was Michelle Waterson, and they hugged, and then she hugged Carla. So, hopefully they get away with it.
Fingers crossed for all of us. Otherwise, we're not going to have too many shows to talk about. So, yeah, we got to hope these shows keep going on. That's all I can say. I'll leave it at that. I hope it's all okay, and I've got my fingers and toes crossed for it. So, yeah. But that takes us on to the next fight, which was the fight that I predicted was going to be the fight of the night. Obviously, it wasn't just because the Gaethje Ferguson fight was so good, but that fight was Calvin Kattar versus Jeremy Stephens, two absolute warriors. Two guys that, they're known for going out and putting on great shows, and they really did it again tonight. That night, Katie, first of all, talks to the fight. It was a finish for Calvin Kattar, I should say. Calvin Kattar, I should say, for people who didn't see it. He got a pretty brutal elbow. It made me feel a little bit sick seeing that elbow hit Jeremy in the face, and obviously then the finish comes shortly after. What was your take on this fight?
It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. He caught him with that right elbow. He just went down like a sack of shit. He got in a couple more shots, including that other vicious elbow that just sliced open his forehead, and he didn't know what day of the week it was. It was beautiful. And Cattar is just, I think he's one of the most underrated people in that division. He's amazing. He obviously fought Chris Fishgold, and it was gutting for all of us that he fought him. I thought that was a massive person to give Fishgold that early on in his UFC career. Yeah. And I know he's desperate to get that one back, but Cattar's got to be right up at the top of that division now.
Zabit he fought as well and had a good fight against Zabit.
And I said last night, I think people sound like idiots when they say if that fight had been 5 rounds, he would have won. But he really was turning the tide in that fight, and Zabit was clinging on, and his gas tank was gone. So he really did come. He's given Zabit the toughest test of his career so far, and I really think he's not far off of those top guys. So yeah, I think I would like to see him fight the Korean Zombie or Yair Rodriguez.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be a bad fight.
Sorry.
Cattar's an absolute animal. I mean, he's one of these fighters he can really put on when he has to. And Chris, I mean, this all came off the back of a first round where Jeremy Stephens had, really put it on him in the first round. He's, pinging him with them low kicks, catching him with good shots. The first round clearly went to Jeremy Stephens, but then for him to come and turn it around like that, what does that say about this guy?
It says that karma caught up with Jeremy Stephens for starters, because I think that Jeremy Stephens deliberately shithoused. He came in at a ridiculously heavy weight, knowing full well that missing weight, he would be better hydrated. He's known for his power shots. It's a better strike. Well, it's more known for hitting hard than having a good technique. It's a difficult fight for him, and he knew full well if he caught Cattar with a decent shot, anyone that gets caught with a decent shot by Stephens, 80% is going to go to sleep, let alone Stephens at 100%. So when it was at 150.5 pounds or something.
To really back up your theory on that, Chris, I think is the fact that he had to get the hoop and everything out to weigh exactly the 5 pounds over that he could weigh for the fight to still go ahead. He literally... It's almost like it was calculated to hit that weight rather than 146 pounds.
Yeah, that's the way that I viewed it, because he knew full well that this type of event, you're not going to get a late replacement in, and they're not going to try and pull that fight off the card as well, because it's going to be an entertaining fight. So it's a calculated risk. Lose, 20% or 25% of your purse, go in, still get your win bonus if you knock the guy out, and it maintains your position within the UFC. Him losing puts him in quite a precarious position, I think. He's been around forever, but he's not got a great record recently. So, it's a shame because I actually put money. Stephens was part of my accumulator bet. So I was gutted in that respect. But to actually see the way that Cattar took him apart, and that finish was just sublime, wasn't it? It was, as some people in MMA would say, unbelievable.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I'm just having some comments up, guys. So I just gotta quickly go to the comments. First thing is, guys, I gotta apologize on behalf of Katie Hunter for everyone who's watching.
I'm sorry.
We're getting a lot of comments coming in about Katie Hunter's terrible language. So
I don't know what I said actually. What did I say?
Peter Knox is saying he loves a woman who swears. But guys, come on, we're all friends here, and then we've got a comment. Chris. We've got a comment from Peter Knox who's saying he thinks Chris looks like a fat Yoel Romero.
I think you'll find I look like the body double of Yoel Romero. We're 42. We're brown. We both have strange voices. Both have awesome abs. So yeah,
I'll say nothing on that, Chris, buddy. I'll plead the fifth on that one, buddy. But Glenn, what did you think of this fight, buddy? Calvin Cattar, and Jeremy Stephens. A big win for Cattar. Where does he stand in this division now, do you think? Who does he take next?
He's got to be up there now, isn't he? But out of that division, I love Ortega. But I'd like him to see to fight Ortega next, and before a title shot.
I think Ortega's going to be fighting the zombie, I think, though, isn't he? They're still trying to make that one happen.
It's still on the cards. I thought one of them was injured. I think
they're trying to make that one happen.
Yeah. But I thought Stephens would win in that fight. I had that wrong. Yeah, and again, the finish is brilliant. That second elbow when he hit him on the floor, I don't think there's anyone would have taken that one. I thought he would have put him into a different dimension. He's up with Ben Askren's knockout. That would have been him going past as a ghost, but that was insane. And when he followed through with him again and tried like a ground and pound, the amount of blood that splashed or rubbed on him, I thought he was cutting all on accident.
Yeah.
But that was unreal.
Well, it was another case, kind of like in the Dominic Cruz Cejudo fight as well, where it was just a brilliant adjustment, I think, Glenn, wasn't it, with that fight?
Yeah.
He took a lot of leg kicks early on, but he started to come back with the punches. What does that say about a fighter, Glenn, when they can make that kind of adjustment in the cage?
No, it says it all, doesn't it? It's not about everyone has a game plan, like Tyson says. Until you get punched in the face, you've got to be able to change up, or you're not going to go. I can't stop breathing that now. Yeah, so everyone got a game plan until you get punched in the face. So it's how you adjust, and it didn't deal with it. But I found, even though Cattar was the longer guy, I think he was doing the most damage when Stephens was pressing inside. So when he's coming inside the pocket, Cattar was catching him more and then forcing him to go back out and catch him with a longer one on the way out. And that's when that elbow come from, is when Stephens pressed forward to get inside the pocket for him to whip one over the top. Yeah. So sometimes being longer, okay, it makes sense for you to think, but perhaps prefers to fight on the inside.
Yeah, no, it's a good insight there, Glenn. We just had a lovely comment from Murad Jansamini there. I'm not going to read it out because I'm just not going to do it. But a big shout out to Murad. I haven't spoken to him for a long time. The first time I actually interviewed Murad Jansamini was a live stream on Facebook, and he messaged me. He messaged me a few days before, and I was absolutely bricking it. I was thinking that this guy's going to get us pulled off. He was like, the things he was saying. But honestly, big shout out, because he was one of the best interviews we ever did. And like to speak to that guy again, and have a bit of a fun with Murad.
He was one of Tony Ferguson's main training partners for this fight.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know that.
Oh, that's what it was. Tony had Tinder on his brain. He couldn't wait to finish and go swiping. That's what it was. Blame him. Yeah. Right. Or what do you call it? Plenty of whores or something, his new one.
Yeah.
Well, Murad, I'm very disappointed in you.
Yeah. Has Katie frozen there by the looks of her? She's been in that same pose.
She's still moving. I think it's a shock of what Murad wrote.
You with us, Katie?
I'm having a few signal problems, but I'm still here.
Good.
There we go. So yeah, big shout out, Murad. Can't wait to have you back on soon, buddy. But yeah, like, as Peter Knox has said, we'll get him on the late show where language is allowed. We'll get him on with Katie Hunter this time, I think. So
we'll have to start at 10 o'clock at night, though.
Yeah, past the watershed, definitely. But yeah, the next fight down below that one then is Greg Hardy versus Yorgan DeCastro. I actually really enjoyed this fight. Greg Hardy got a unanimous decision, switched things up kind of second round, and really did well. I come to you for this again, Chris, for this one. What do you make of this fight and this victory for Greg Hardy?
We saw the very best Greg Hardy that we've seen in the UFC. He's starting to adjust and become a fighter now, certainly a more well-rounded fighter. But I think a lot of it does have to go down to the fact that DeCastro broke either his foot or his toe in the second, throwing a leg kick. Hardy stepped away from it, and it completely ruined DeCastro's movement. He became sensitive. He didn't want to engage whatsoever and allowed Hardy then to impose himself. But the Hardy a couple of fights ago would have just gone in all guns blazing, Francis Ngannou style, but without the power. Just throwing haymakers, trying to finish the
haymakers and hay bales.
Yeah, throwing them big old bungalows. But no, he was calm. He was efficient with his energy. He actually started to look like a proper fighter. So as much as he seems like a normal human being, he came across very well within the cage, certainly professionally.
Yeah, and
well-deserved victory.
Yeah, it was, and he avoided some big shots as well. Katie, what was your thoughts on DeCastro? Because he looked dangerous, didn't he? Even though Greg Hardy did make the adjustments, DeCastro was always in there.
Yeah, I thought as soon as his foot got injured, though, he just stopped altogether. It's like he'd given up, even though he was carrying on. And for me, I didn't really enjoy the fight after that. I found it a little bit boring. Obviously, Greg Hardy is improving. I am biased. I don't like him anyway. It just wasn't one of the fights on the card that I massively enjoyed. I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of more skilled fighters that never get as high up the card as Hardy, which isn't his fault. And a lot of people that I'd prefer to see in those top spots. But it wasn't his fault that DeCastro injured himself and couldn't really throw much. But from then on, I thought it was just him outpointing his way to victory.
Yeah. Glenn, Peter Knox has commented he loves Hardy. He's improving every fight. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'll be honest though, I haven't known too much about Hardy since he started. Obviously, his name has been out in a couple of fights, but then we started looking into him. I think the only thing for me, for him to be a stand-up fighter, which he seems that's what he is, I'm not sure if he's got much wrestling or grappling, he needs to add a bit more zip to his punches. I mean, he's clearly an athlete with his background. He's clearly disciplined, because what I liked as well is when his coaches was barking orders, he was listening. You know, you could see him when he was... Funny enough, it was DC that said from a commentary to check that kick, and he checked the kick and broke his toe.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can see him listening, in and acting, but for him to be considered anywhere near the top, I wouldn't say top 10, far from that. For anywhere near the top half, he needs to add there's a lot more zip. I mean, DeCastro, his leg kicks was savage. If he hadn't checked that kick and broke his toe, I think he would have buckled his leg. Because he was a lot quicker, there's a lot more zip. Them overhands, all right, they was telegraphed, you could see him come in, but if any of them had caught him, I think they would have been in world trouble.
Yeah. Glenn, one thing I got to ask you as well, this is completely non-fight related, but are you having a competition with me for worst lockdown haircut at the moment?
It's not a competition. Oh, mate, I've been hiding in my hat, but the button's just come undone, so... But yeah, I think I win now, anyway, mate. I think I win now.
It's close. It is close, guy. I think you might just shave me on the worst lockdown haircut at the moment. Though.
Let's for the last couple of minutes, then chuck it to the voters. Who was the worst lockdown haircut, myself or Lewis?
There we go.
Them in the comments. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
We'll see.
Sorry, how do I comment?
Should we put that question in for the last couple of minutes or what?
Yeah. Chris, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to comment on that one, Chris. Right?
Lewis, should we put that question in for the last 5 minutes of the show?
Yeah, if you want. If you want. I know what the answer is, Glenn, so I don't need that answered, but
no, I don't mean me and you, the tattoo question.
Oh yeah, go on, stick it in.
Right, anyone watching, we got a question for you. Name as many UFC fighters or top fighters who have their own names tattooed on them. So there's a tattoo over there. As many fighters as you can with their own names tattooed on them.
There we go.
And just put them in the comments, and then Frankie will check them up for us. Okay, we're all involved.
Yeah, and then whoever gets the most right, Katie Hunt is going to give a prize to.
Yeah.
Am I?
Whoever wins can have a 1 minute grapple with Peter Knox.
Yeah.
Alcohol and beer not allowed.
He's already running marathon tomorrow. He's running marathon tomorrow because he had a bet with Aidan Stephen that he would and Scott Malone that he would easily run a marathon, and 5 hours is a shit time. Sorry, Chris, I've done it again. 5 hours is a terrible time, and Peter thinks he can do it in 3 hours.
Yeah. So Peter got to stop making these bets. You got to stop making these bets. The winner can have a grapple with Katie Hunter for a minute. Much better prize. Katie, going back.
Distancing is over.
Yeah. Katie, going back to what Glenn said about the fighters hearing what DC was saying. what was your take on that? I know they said in the commentary, like maybe should they be commenting further away because people could hear. I think Carla Esparza heard some of the comments as well. What was your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it must be really strange. And I know Brad Walton mentioned it when he was speaking to Danny recently about Daniel Strauss on the Cage Warriors 113. When he's talking about some of the jiu-jitsu moves and he's explaining how someone advances a position or defends a position, he was coaching them. But what could he do? Because he was on top of the action. I don't actually see why they've got to be in there when they spend most of the time looking at the monitors anyway. And how can they be honest about someone, having a bad performance or whatever while they're in there? That's could get in their head. And it was also really strange how they were set out, how like they'd been together the whole time. Everyone had seen they'd been together and then they were distanced in there. It was just, I don't know, it's a bit strange.
Yeah, it's food for thought, isn't it? Like you said, I know Dana said in the post interview that there's definitely a lot of things they need to work on. They're improving with this kind of situation, and I think that will be the case. The UFC's behind the scenes staff are really, really good at this kind of thing. So I don't know. It'll just be interesting to see where they go with it. So I mean, I guess maybe we'll pick up on this next week after the card and see what they do, and we can talk a bit more about it then. I mean, Chris, I can see you getting ready to say something. What's your take, buddy?
If you're saying that Carla Esparza actually heard what they were saying, then she didn't react whatsoever to what they were saying, because all they kept saying was, if she needs to, if she was going to take Michelle Waterson down, which obviously was the game plan, Waterson is the striker, Carla Esparza is the wrestler, then she needs to get with it. She needs to actually close the distance to be able to take her down. Esparza was trying to shoot from 5 meters away. She was just telegraphing every single shot. She didn't adjust her game plan one bit. So regardless of the fact that people can hear what's being said, you've still got to actually take that on board. And it's not a voice that you're used to hearing. And when you're actually in that zone anyway, are you actually going to take it on board? So I don't think it's that bigger issue, unless someone's literally on top of them, like what Katie referenced before, when you've got someone with the ability of Daniel Strauss talking about how someone would get out of a submission attempt when they're literally right next to them. Yeah, I suppose that would be a benefit to them, but actually being in the action, stood, toe to toe with your opponent in the middle of the octagon, I can't see that being a massive issue whatsoever, really. Yeah. And also just referencing what Katie said about the way that they're set out, why bother spreading them out when at the start of the broadcast they all stood next to each other? What's the point?
Very strange, wasn't it?
If you're going to get it, you're going to get it at the very start. You're not going to get it from sitting next to each other. And the fact that they were separated really caused a problem for John Anik, because he was desperate just to say something. It was Anik, wasn't it? The third guy? Yeah, because it's just desperate to say something. And what he was saying, he made Mike Goldberg sound, as in Mike Goldberg from 10 years ago, sound really professional, because he was struggling. He was struggling to get involved in the conversation. It was essentially Rogan and DC chatting to each other and coming up with quite, well, apart from some craziness that Rogan came up with, but still relatively valid points. And then every so often you'd just hear Anik pop in with, I don't know, sponsored by Modelo beer, the whatever beer it is in whatever, whatever the slogan was, that was pretty much all that he was adding. And without actually having those other two vibing off of him, he really, really struggled. It was just the strangest setup.
Yeah, but I kind of get, I didn't notice that at the time, but now you say it, I definitely get what you mean. But like I said, I think, Chris, it is one of those things, it's a strange situation, and they're gonna have to take some time to figure it out. My money would be on them all sitting together next time, though. I reckon next card, I think they'll all be back together.
Chuck some masks on them; they'll be fine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, while we're on it as well, Katie, I'll come to you because we're talking about Michelle Waterson and Carla Esparza just there. Obviously, Carla Esparza getting a win. I'd say maybe a little bit of an upset as well. What was your take on that fight?
Yeah, I didn't massively agree with the decision, but I didn't feel it was that much of a robbery to comment upon. I don't think that's the kind of fight that, I don't know, two really high profile women in the division, and watching a fight like that, I don't think does much to draw fans to women's MMA. It was a bit dull. I did think that Michelle did enough to win with stuffing a lot of the takedown attempts, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't care about it as much as I should have, I think.
Yeah, no, I kind of get what you mean. It was one of those when I think, like you said, Esparza is definitely going to be happy to come out with a win. I think she probably was a bit of an underdog in that fight, and yeah, I mean, where'd she both these go in now, Chris?
Both of them are sitting as middle order fighters. Neither of them are good enough to be able to really make a run for the title. Going back to what you're saying, styles make fights, and both of these fighters, because they've got such disparate styles, they're both so wary of each other's strength. So Esparza wanted to stay well out of striking range, didn't even want to stay within Waterson's kicking range. So she stood on the outside all the time. Waterson was just really wary not to overcommit to any type of strikes in case Esparza got hold of her limb and took her down, because she knew if she got taken down, then Esparza probably would have won the round. What Glenn was talking about earlier, and it's something we've spoken about in a previous show about defensive wrestling should be scored. Absolutely should have been in this, because Esparza didn't. She landed. I think did she get Waterson down? She did it. It was only brief. It was only briefly.
Yeah, she did.
But she did literally nothing with it whatsoever. Waterson stuffed far more than Carla landed. I thought that Waterson actually landed more shots as well, from what I could see. I couldn't see how Carla Esparza won that fight. I don't know, maybe the judge, clearly the judge saw it very, very, very differently. I've watched it a couple of times and trying to be objective about it, and I just couldn't see it. But I didn't do, like Kate said, didn't do either of these athletes any favours the way that the fight turned out, because it's a chance for them to showcase themselves, and neither of them really did that. It's technically a very smart fight, but it just wasn't exciting whatsoever. And when you on a fight card with so many exciting fights, there are exciting fights beforehand, and they knew full well there was going to be exciting fights after them as well. I think that they should have taken more risks, which is a shame, because on paper that would have looked like a really intriguing contest.
Yeah. Peter Knox is saying he'd let her take him. Peter would let Carla Esparza take him down, which, yeah, fair play, Peter. I'm not saying anything about that, buddy. And I mean, obviously, like you said, Glenn, you thought it was a bad decision with the judge in there, but Glenn, I want to come to you next and talk a little about the Cowboy and Anthony Pettis fight, because that was another one where I think a lot of people thought Cowboy had won that fight. Obviously, Anthony Pettis getting the decision. It was close. What was your take on the fight?
Yeah, it was close, but I mean, you can just tell by Showtime's reaction when they raised his hand. He was shocked. But Cowboy being Cowboy took it well, but I think it was, I think definitely Cowboy won it.
Well, even Pettis turned around and said straight away at the end, he said, "I'll take it." Said it to Cowboy, and then he even said it to Rogan as well in the cage. He didn't think that he'd won it at all, did he?
No, he didn't, did he? But that being said, they both didn't change anything up. I mean, okay, there's no guarantee you win, there's no guarantee you're losing. But neither of them even thought about changing their game plans through the fight. They stuck to it. They didn't try and shoot in overly. Okay, Cowboy had a few stuffed attempts, but it was nothing too much.
But the one good thing to come from that,
I thought it showed.
Sorry, Katie, go on, carry on.
Go on, Chris.
Pause again.
Yeah, that terrible, that Essex Wi-Fi, Katie. Yeah, you're turning into Glenn. You want to get on the date there as well.
Sorry,
go on,
guys.
Katie, you're back again.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that one thing it highlighted to me was how far off of the top of that division both those guys were. They just look a million miles away from the fighters they used to be, and the fighters who were at the top of that weight class.
But they actually fought a welterweight, didn't they?
Yeah.
For that fight. Now, the one thing I was going to say was I thought that what it did highlight was how much better fighters are when they're fighting closer to their natural weight, because Pettis took some shots from Cerrone, which at 155 would have it'd have been sent to the Darklands. You've seen that, Cerrone catches you right, you're out. But a fully hydrated Pettis actually took those shots and absorbed them and still managed to come back. And okay, I didn't think he actually won the fight, but it wasn't quite the same travesty as I thought the previous fight that we talked about was.
Katie, Peter Knox has just posted. Go on, Glenn.
I said for a while, if I could change anything in MMA, it'd be I'd do away with day before weigh-ins and have hydrations tests. Just add a few more weight classes in between 170, 165, then say, and add one above light heavyweight, and then just have everyone normal weight. So the only people who are missing out for me now is the fans, because you're so tired after a heavyweight cut. I feel there's just no need for it anymore. There's enough numbers there now to stop trying to pinch these inches to be better. Then just stick to the normal weight.
It's definitely one we've spoke a lot about this on the show, and we can never really come to a 100% sort of agreement, because we always, one person says one thing, one person says another thing. It's one of those. I personally agree with you, Glenn. I think I'd like to see a few more weight classes, but at the same time, I don't know. I think the system is there. It follows the boxing model, doesn't it? I suppose, but you never see as many people missing in boxing. You're always going to get fighters as well who are going to try and pinch an inch. You're always going to get them trying to cut that a little bit more than the others to get advantage, have the hydration test and then hydrate or whatever, or do what they can. But let's try and get a little level playing field. Because for me, the only ones missing out are us as fans. Yeah. They're not getting an edge over their opponent because they're the same size as them. They cut them from the same weight. Katie, Peter Knox is saying that these guys should both retire now. What's your thoughts on that?
I think they've still got a job to do for the UFC. I think having Pettis on a main card is, well, this time they weren't even on a main card, but exceptional circumstances. I think there's still a place for them, and the job they do, I just don't think it hasn't been for a long time, a title run or anything. They're big fan favourites. I thought that was the weirdest fight of all without a crowd, apart from the main event, because usually Cowboy would get such a reaction from the crowd. But I think he looks tired and he looks old, Cowboy. And I think offering to fight 3 times in a week ain't the one, and especially that Florida Commission might even sign it off, Cowboy. So be careful what you commit to.
I don't know, Chris. What do you think? I mean, like you said, with Cowboy wanting to fight 3 times in a week, I think it shows he's still got that kind of fighting spirit. But is the body there now? Do you think?
Like Katie said, I think they've got a place within the roster. You can't always have people who are just running for the title. You need to have those experienced guys, the people who have been around, the crowd favourites, the people who bring in not necessarily the pay-per-view figures, but the people who bring in the terrestrial figures as well, which is why they'd have them at the top of the undercard. And you need people who will test those up-and-comers to see whether they're actually capable of moving up to that next level. And Cowboy and Pettis are both those types of people. You can put them in at 170 or 155, and you put them in up against some young up-and-comer, test them, see how good they are. They're both draws. They both want to continue fighting. They've both got an attractive fighting style. I still think they're a good couple of years away from retirement. In terms of Cowboy fighting 3 times in a week, well, Cowboy just wants to get paid, doesn't he? But that ranch is going to pay for itself, and knows the guns, the windsurfing, the boats, whatever crazy shit that he does as well. On another show, they call him a shit-eating wild man, and I think that's pretty much right. He's a crazy bastard. He just loves fighting. So, no, definitely not having him on 3 times in a row, but definitely keep him on the roster until he's at the point where he's a danger to himself.
I agree with that, Chris. To be fair, I think that's a fairly good assessment, buddy. So with that being said, obviously a great card. I think, to be fair, it was a card everybody needed. We've definitely been missing the sport a lot the last couple of months. Katie, do you enjoy this card overall on Saturday night?
I thought it was a good card. I don't think it was the mega cards that Dana was trying to bang the drum for it to be. It was a good fight, a good card with good fights on it, and they delivered a good performance, most of them. I enjoyed it, but I would have enjoyed any show coming back after this long.
Yeah. Glenn, do you agree with that?
Yeah, you could have put people that fight in our local shows on, and people would have paid for it. We was that desperate. I mean, but I'm a firm believer. Not always the bigger names sell the bigger fights. I think it takes people who need to try and fight their way up to actually put a bigger show on for us, because they got to prove a point to be here. Then, I mean, sometimes it's higher names get what's the word I'm looking for? They're already there, sort of thing, so they don't feel like they don't have to put a show on it.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. That makes sense. It was a good card for me, Chris. I mean, UFC 249 in the books now. How do you think this one's going to be remembered when we look back in a couple of years and we look at this card as the first one during coronavirus?
Well, as long as no one dies or no one gets seriously ill as a result of being in the presence of Jacare and his two cornermen, hopefully it'll be remembered fondly, because I think we also need to pay homage to the matchmakers as well, because the way that they've crafted that card is absolutely amazing. They put the right people together to create the right environment to actually give us those level of fights. And from bottom to top, a couple of very noticeable exceptions, that was banger after banger. You look at, I rewatched Bryce Mitchell, Fed Nasty versus Charles Rosa today. Now, bearing in mind that I'm not even a massive grappling fan, but oh my God, that fight was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Now, from there, which is on the pre-prelims, all the way up to Justin Gaethje putting on the most stellar performance that he's ever put on in his life. That was a hell of a set of fights all the way through. So, fair play to the UFC matchmakers. They did a really good job. The event was really enjoyable. Providing, as I said, no one dies or no one gets seriously injured as a result of it. I think it'll be remembered as being one of the better events that they've put on in recent years.
Yeah, definitely. And that brings us to the end of this show. We've obviously picked the bones of UFC 249. Big card, all done and dusted. We've got another show coming up on Thursday night. Peter Knox is telling me that is obviously going to be reviewing the fights that go on Wednesday, once again in Florida. Katie Hunter, what's the lowdown with our show for people who want to watch?
We've got one of the impressionists from Britain's Got Talent. Peter, remind me of his name. He's on next Sunday, and we're going to be doing impressions as the challenge next Sunday. So something else for me to fret about a week until Sunday.
So is he coming on the Thursday show as well?
On the Sunday show, Sunday.
Oh, that's the Sunday show. Right, okay.
Yeah.
Danny
Danny Posthill's his name. Sorry, Danny. This week from us, we're going to be back on Thursday, aren't we? And predicting Saturday's fights and also reviewing the fights on Wednesday.
Yeah.
This is the card for Wednesday.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Predictions now. Quick prediction now. Is Ray Ball going to make weight?
No.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to be optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be cynical. So yeah, he's going to make it. Yeah. If not, we forgive him.
I'm going to go, Katie. I'm going to go with a no. I reckon he's going to miss.
There you go. I'm really excited for the Alexander Hernandez fight as well. I don't know why I kind of like watching him fight. So
I love OSP. Well, and hopefully there'll be a sub this week because there's no subs the weekend.
Exactly.
There should have been in that opening one. If Charles Rosa wasn't as good as he was, then he should have been subbed out about 50 times in that very first fight.
Oh, I actually missed that fight, right? But I tried looking for it today, and what I'm hearing about that Fed Nasty, he was outstanding.
He was on Fight Pass. I think there's 3 twister attempts. There was countless head and arm triangles that he tried. He just literally dominated on the floor. It was poetry, as my mate would say. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I'll get all that tomorrow.
Have a watch, Glenn. Have a watch, buddy. But yeah, for now, that's the end of the show, guys. As we put on,
are we going to do the names?
Have anyone come in with the tattoos?
There we go, Katie Hunter. I completely forgot about that. So well done for reminding me. Go on, Katie. Take it away. You can do the names, Katie.
Oh well, Peter Knox has competed. He's got Gaethje, Holloway, Cerrone, Swanson, Cyborg, Elkins. Has Elkins got his name as well as that horrible The Damage one? Or are we counting fight names?
I'm hopeless.
And me.
I'm hopeless on this one. There's about me more, guys. If you've got any more, please drop them in the comments.
I got two more than that.
Go on, Sledge.
McGregor and Showtime.
Yeah.
Showtime, yeah.
Chris, you got any? No, Chris is frozen, guys.
And I used to have mine, but I had it covered up.
Don't lie, Glenn. It was in case you forgot your name.
It was, mate. There was only 14 when I had it done, so.
There we go. Guys, as always, it's been a major pleasure talking to you. Another one in the books. For everyone watching, thank you, first of all. And please do follow us on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook channel. Subscribe to us. Like I said, we want to eventually try and take this next step further. So we want to get as many followers as we can. And really just kind of keep pushing the content that we make. We really enjoy it. And we hope you do too. So, yeah, give us a follow. And, yeah, until next time, guys, thank you very much. And I'll see you all soon.
See you,
See
you guys.
Thank you.